Really interesting story in the Murdoch press over the weekend. The idea that for areas of entrenched disadvantage in Australia, you consider rolling out what in the Northern Territory is known as a basics card, a card that limits what people who rely on government benefits to live can spend their money on. A card that, in the case that was being quoted in the papers, would restrict your access to alcohol and to spending money on poker machines. Given that we have pockets of entrenched disadvantage in Tasmania that look as horrible as anywhere in the country, is the government considering rolling this idea out as a trial here? Alan Tudge is Parliamentary Secretary to the Prime Minister. He joins us this morning. Parlsec, good morning to you.
Good morning, Leon.
And thank you for coming on. Could you give us the bones of this proposal as the government's considering it at the moment?
So in essence, Leon, we're proposing to trial the introduction of a cashless debit card. It would look like an ordinary Visa or EFTPOS card, and you could use it anywhere, you could purchase anything, but you'd just be excluded from purchasing alcohol and using it on the pokies. And because your cash was limited, it obviously means that you couldn't use your welfare dollars for purchasing drugs. And the overall objective of it is, of course, to address the significant harm in some places which is caused by welfare-fuelled alcohol and drug abuse, particularly against women.
Tasmania has significant pockets of entrenched disadvantage. Are you considering this proposal for trial in Tasmania?
We haven't determined the locations of the trials yet. We'll trial it in a small number of places. The two criteria which we're going to assess where we trial is A, where there is significant disadvantage, high welfare dependence, and where we know there is problems caused by welfare-fuelled alcohol and drug abuse. The second criteria is ideally where there's at least an openness from the community leaders in a particular area to wanting to participate in the trial. So that might be a location in Tasmania, and certainly if areas, if community leaders of certain areas are open to considering a trial, then they should get in contact with me.
So if a community came to you and said, can we do this in our part of Australia, you'd consider rolling it out there?
We'd certainly take a look at it. If there are community leaders, and there already have been who have approached me to say, listen, could we trial it here, then obviously we'll have a look at the circumstances there and what are the practicalities of doing it there and compare it to other proposals which might be on the table.
Your government must have floated this as more than just an idea. Do you already have trial sites in mind?
We've got a few places in mind, but we're not ready to announce where we might trial it yet because we've still got a lot of consultations to do with those community leaders and indeed with many other people before we go ahead and announce trial locations.
Are any of those trial sites in Tasmania, Mr. Tudge?
Listen, I'm not going to rule in or out any particular trial sites at the moment. We're very open still to where the trial sites might be, as long as they broadly satisfy those two criteria. The overall objective, which we want to test in these discrete trials, is to minimise the harm caused by welfare-fuelled alcohol and drug abuse. That's the overall objective which we're trying to achieve with the card in a particular trial site. We want to do it carefully, we want to consult, and we want to assess how that goes before making then any further decisions.
Some in the community sector in Tasmania have come out and said they really dislike this idea. What's your response to them? It won't be the first time you've heard that. What is your response to those that say this is discriminatory, it unreasonably targets and determines how people on welfare can spend what little money they get from the government each fortnight?
Well, it won't, and I just want to make this point clear that if you're a welfare recipient in a trial community and you basically are using your money responsibly, i.e. you're not a big drinker, you're not a big gambler, you don't take drugs, then the only impact on you will be that you have to reach into your pocket and instead of pulling out cash, you'll have to pull out a card and tap it. Now, because the card is designed to be used everywhere for anything, except excluding those two things that I said at the outset, alcohol and pokies. That's what the card is about. So beyond that, there is still complete choice for where people spend their money. So I just want to make that clear.
How easy will it be to make it to work? How will the card know that you're trying to buy alcohol rather than soft drink at a bottle shop?
Yeah, we've been working with the financial services institutions over the last 6 months or so in relation to this and what the technology is available. In some states, Leon, you can only purchase alcohol in a designated alcohol outlet. And that means you can simply switch off that store from the operability of the card. Where in other states where you can purchase alcohol in a grocery store, the technological solution becomes a bit more tricky, and we're working through that with the financial services institution.
In Tasmania, a lot of people on welfare are in welfare and living in small communities. They only have one or maybe two shops to go to. If it were to roll out here, it would need to be incredibly or capable of incredible levels of discrimination to work out what was what when it came to what could be purchased and what couldn't.
Well, it depends on the nature of those shops as well in a particular community as to whether or not they were stocking alcohol or not. So we'd want to work through those. If there was a trial site chosen in Tasmania, we'd have to work through those with the shop owners in those particular communities. But certainly in some states, you can just simply code the card so that it will switch off all liquor stores, and that means you can't use that card for purchasing liquor across the state.
Would you be able to buy smokes with it?
The intent is that you still would be able to buy smokes for it. Now, there's a bit of a debate about this, but in part the reason being that we want to keep the restrictions narrow, and also because the overall objective of the card, as recommended by Andrew Forrest, was to reduce the social harm caused by welfare abuse, if you like. Now, as you know, that's particularly the case in some communities where alcohol and drugs are rife. And not only do they damage the individual, but it can lead to catastrophic consequences for the community, particularly in relation to violence against women. Smoking doesn't seem to do that.
On ABC Local Radio around Tasmania, Alan Tudge is our guest, Parliamentary Secretary to the Prime Minister. Mel says via text this morning, here's a question for you, Mr. Tudge. As a person on a welfare payment, I don't have any problem with the banning of buying alcohol, drugs or gambling. I do have a problem with being treated as if I'm a lowlife just because I'm on welfare. Will the card be usable everywhere or will it be very restrictive, says Mel?
Yeah, the answer to that, and two answers to that. One is that we're not proposing to treat welfare recipients like low life. I don't like that term, and it's not accurate. Second is that this card will be usable everywhere to purchase anything except for the purchase of alcohol and for gambling. So wherever at the moment you can use your Visa or EFTPOS card in your pocket, you would be able to use this proposed cashless debit card.
Okay. Just a quick one before we go. When will you decide where the first places to trial this are?
It'll be in the months ahead. We're proposing to trial it towards the well into the second half of the year. So we're having ongoing consultations over the weeks and months ahead in terms of where the best trial sites are likely to be. Tasmania
going to be one of them?
We just haven't decided, Leon. We haven't decided where the trial sites will be, and as I said, if there's particular community leaders who are thinking, listen, this actually could be a significant benefit for our community here and would be willing to trial it, then of course they should get in contact with me in relation to that.
So, and there's always hundreds of questions that come cascading into your mind. Will this apply to people just on unemployment benefits, or will it apply to other forms of pension as well?
That precise question hasn't been decided, but the thinking is that it would apply to people on unemployment benefits or people of working age, and wouldn't necessarily apply to, say, people on the aged pension. But that's to be worked through, partly in consultation with the community leaders in a particular trial location.
Good to talk to you this morning.
Thanks so much, Leon.
Alan Tudge, Parlsec to the Prime Minister on 936 ABC Hobart.